Inside the Birds is back. What's up, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, Adam Caplan. It's our midweek mashup on Inside the Birds, but no game to preview because the Eagles are entering the bye. So it's sort of a bye week, midweek mashup. We got a lot of news on transactions, injuries, and of course, we'll recap some all 22 tape review from the Eagles win over the Cowboys. Adam Caplan, the Eagles, they win 28-23. They are 8-1. We made the point on the post-game show that we do with Clay Harbor that the Eagles, every team is flawed in some way. There's no perfect team. The Eagles camouflage theirs so far better than any other NFL team has. That's why they have the best record in the NFL. So I'm going to ask you right now, if you were to do a top 5 power rankings right here on the spot, NFL for Inside the Birds.
Eagles, boy, I'm gonna go Eagles 1.
Okay, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that we're gonna just do the whole NFL. Here's why. Kansas City's got issues with their offense. I mean, if anyone is watching, there's just something off with it's just not quite. It's clearly not as good as last year. They're spreading the ball around. We're calling a super spreader offense. It's some of the guys are getting the football. Rashee Rice is kind of sort of broken out as a rookie, I guess you could say. But there's something missing in their offense. Their secondary is terrific. Their defense is actually better than last season. It's close between. We're just going to do the 1 through 5 overall. The whole league. Eagles 1. You could say Kansas City's 1. It's close between the two. And my breakout team in the NFC this year was Detroit. Really in the NFL, they're coming off their bye, but boy, Baltimore's defense. This Mike McDonald, who came from Michigan and used to be with Baltimore, he's only 35 years old. I mean, this kid has done such a great job.
Yeah.
They're right up there. So I would say Chiefs, Eagles, Chiefs, Ravens, Lions are 4. Now, what the hell's going on with the Niners, man? 3 losses in a row. It's not just Brock Purdy turning it over.
Yeah.
They're having problems on the back end. I had heard they were looking for a corner. They called the Panthers. They were calling around. If they didn't get Chase Young, the Panthers weren't really engaging anyone in Brian Birds, but they were calling a bunch of teams for pass rushers. Mm-hmm. They're going to be better. They're coming back from the bye, but there's something off with them. I can't quite put my finger on it.
You're right. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt when they get healthy. So my top 5 would be Eagles number 1. I actually would put the Ravens right now at number 2. I think that they are so well-rounded. Lamar is playing great. The new offense with Todd Monken has been phenomenal. None of the receivers are really exploding the way AJ Brown or Justin Jefferson is, but Lamar is doing a really good job of spreading the ball and making matchups difficult, and that defense is just playing out of its mind. So I would put the Ravens at number, because I think if the Ravens play the Chiefs right now, the way the Chiefs are struggling to find that number 1 wideout next to Travis Kelce, I think the Ravens would win the game on a neutral field. So I would put, the Ravens 2. I would put Kansas City 3. I think I'd still put San Francisco 4, just because I feel like when they're healthy, you give them the benefit of the doubt. And then 5 is tough, right? Because the Bengals are playing really well right now also. Yeah.
They've turned their season because Joe Burrow's left calf is healed and he's running around, he's scrambling. T. Higgins is over his broken ribs. He's playing great. Their defense under Lou Anarumo. That secondary, it's like, good luck trying to remember. The Cam Taylor-Britt's one name that comes to mind, but the rest of them, remember Jesse Bates is with Atlanta. They just do a great job of scheming and execution. So, it's going to be a fun playoff run. And I got to tell you before we move on that, and I talked to some friends who were at that Eagles game. Like you and I at home with Clay Harbor on our post-game show, we were just blown away by the intensity. But talking to people there, it can't compare to the Phillies playoffs, obviously that intensity. But for a regular season game, this last game, I can't remember a game this intense for a regular season game. It was just really incredible.
Yeah, no, it was fun. All right, we got a great week coming up here on Inside the Birds. Q&A is already out, and they did a bang-up job as usual. Had some really interesting insights on the defense, on Jalen Hurts, so you got to check that out. Really good stuff from both Quentin Michael and Jason Avant. This is going to be an off week for Derek Gunn. Had a few things to take care of, so it's a bye. We enter the bye week anyway, so Gunn on 1 will likely be back down the road. Of course, we will have on Thursday. We'll have Clay Harbor and Greg Cosell with Inside the Tape, and I already spoke to Clay. He's already been knee deep in the tape and picking out some interesting things for him and Greg to break down. They've been using I don't know if people don't realize this. They've been using a lot of all 22, not a lot, but a good amount of all 22 footage as visuals in their podcast lately, and that's just made it even better. So that's the week that there will be here on Inside the Birds, even without a game on Sunday. Of course, our flip script, our weekly chat with former Eagles quarterbacks coach John DiFilippo, which we do for our Patreon members, is going to be up. It's up right now.
It's up early.
Yeah, we got it up early. He was very excited to break down the game because it was Eagles Cowboys, and he had made some observations going into the game, and then some things happened that he was anxious to talk about. So definitely highly recommend checking that out, along with Chuck Pagano is going to be a guest pretty soon again for our Patreon members. Now, remember, we had Chuck on going into the season because because Sean Desai coached under him in Chicago, and we wanted Chuck's insights into Sean Desai, and we all agreed during the interview that it's probably a good idea to reconnect, because one of the points he made is that Sean is not a stagnant. He's not going to run the same exact thing he did in Chicago, and he hasn't. So I'm really, really curious to see what Chuck thinks about what Sean Desai is doing here in Philadelphia with the personnel that he has.
All right, let me go back to DiFilippo. He in this episode, because we need to let people actually know what's on the show.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about the bye weeks. How this is it when we take questions from our members. So they posted that on there. We were going to do the same thing anyway. So from a coaching standpoint, as a coordinator or quarterbacks coach, which he's been twice, he was obviously the Eagles quarterbacks coach in 2017. How do you handle from a coaching standpoint? And what do you on a self scout? How does that work? Like you and I are going to have our own self scout for the Eagles on our Friday show, but how do you do that? Like, where do you is it just cut ups? Like, what do you do to go gather that information? And are there things you want to accomplish out of by just in general? Not just okay, this isn't going well, but are there things like are there things from training camp or some place that you wanted to run which you've hidden, like you haven't used them yet, or you wanted to come out and do that? And obviously, as you said, the offensive tape is John watched the tape on Monday, and he texts me, goes, "Dude, we got to talk about the Goddard's absence and how they're going to handle it, because I've been through this before." I'm like, done, thank you. So he was kind of like emphatic with the exclamation, but we got to talk about this. I'm like, okay, because John was on the staff, and John ran the red zone offense, which was number 1 in the National Football League.
Right.
And it just so happens the Eagles the red zone all of a sudden has come. I don't want to say it came out of nowhere, just struggling. The red zone has been good. What is the key coming out of the bye when do you really look at all the numbers, and how do you know what your junk numbers and real numbers that you got to improve on? So I wanted to make sure what we talked to him about that stuff, because as you said, this is like the perfect time to talk to these coaches. And I can't wait to talk to Chuck, because we'd said, let's talk around mid-season or when they're buys. It just so happened, here we are. And he and I texted earlier this week, and he's aware of the nickel issue.
I think everybody in the world, in the NFL world, is aware of the nickel issue by now.
Because I've never seen this before. Now, it's not their fault. They lost their top 2 nickels, Maddox and McPherson. But I want to talk to Chuck. What do you do as a coordinator? Like, has he ever come up through anything like this? Because I know Sean coached under Chuck, but as a coordinator, how do you handle this? Like, what the hell do you do when you're given who you're given? And I love what DiFilippo said on our last show with him last weekend. I don't know, you or I asked him, what would you do if you were the coordinator, knowing that the club didn't have their nickel? What did he say? Like, go after? What did he say?
Oh, man, I forgot.
Something like, I go the hell after him.
Oh, yeah. You attack. He goes, you attack it until they make you not. Right. Yeah.
And that's what they did.
That is exactly what Dallas did.
How the hell the Dallas only, what did they score? 23? Is that right?
Yes.
20, 23?
Yes,
right.
But they certainly had opportunities.
Yeah. Oh, and John also threw this, and this is great. The AJ Brown almost fumble, when he ran into the Hurts, he said, okay, we're going to be talking about this on this show. And we talked about it. So yeah, really appreciate his input. And because this is getting access to John's thoughts, because when he watched the tape, he's like, as he told Geoff and I off camera last week, he goes, guys, I'm sorry this took so long for me to go over the tape, but I'm meticulous with this. Because in the beginning, he thought it would take him an hour and a half. It might take him 3 hours to do it, to grade it, because he's actually grading it. So it's pretty special what John's doing. We really
It is. It no doubt about it. You know, it's funny, the whole what do you do in the slot thing, because I was trying to think of an expression. Do you remember like the old Braves of the, I don't know, was it 1940 or something? They had pitchers named Sane and Spahn, right? Warren Spahn and
well, Warren Spahn pitched in right.
right, but the expression was something like "San in Spain and pray for rain," or
oh
Spahn
yeah,
and
that
pray
sounds
for
right.
rain,
Yeah,
right?
sure,
Well,
sure.
what do you do in the nickel? And I was like, I don't know. You play Brown and Ricks, and you pray for a miss.
Right. I've heard, it's funny. I've heard coaches say that when there's an O-line coach you and I know, particularly myself. I know you met him. And over the years, he dealt with like ridiculous amount of injuries. And this guy told me I don't know if he's going against Aaron Donald or Nick Bosa. I said, well, how are you going to handle this week? He goes, dude, pray. I guess I don't know how he goes, we're just going to help. We're going to help our guys handle it, right. And Flip talked about that, about when he was previewing the Rams tape.
No.
And also remember when he talked about Von Miller, he said Von Miller literally, did he wake up in a cold sweat? What did he say?
He did wake up having nightmares of Von Miller. Yes.
That's insane. So patreon.com/InsideTheBirds to subscribe. And also tonight, we've got our Discord chat, and you and I next week should be our live stream, which we love to do.
Yeah. All right, that's patreon.com/InsideTheBirds to become a member, and membership certainly has its privileges. All right, Inside the Birds is brought to you by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It is the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. Let's get into the transactions that have happened over the last 24 to 36. Linebacker Ben Van Sumeren, who made his debut as a practice squad elevation on special teams for the Eagles, reverted back to the practice squad. So I don't believe he played a single defensive snap in the game. I think it was just all special teams. So not much to say about that other than he's got 2 left. And I don't know whether this is surprising or not surprising based on some of the things we had said earlier in this, training camp and into the season. But the Eagles had another offensive lineman signed off their practice squad, and another one by a division rival, as the Commanders signed Julian Good-Jones, who's been with the Eagles for a couple of years on the practice squad. They got him from the CFL. We had talked about him a lot because we said this is really the only guy they have outside of Jason Kelsey who has snapped the ball in an NFL game. Even Cam Jurgens, who is the heir apparent at center, has not snapped the ball in an NFL regular season game. He has in the preseason. So I guess that ties him with Julian. They both have snapped the ball only in preseason games, Jurgens and Julian Good-Jones. Well, he is now a member of the Washington Commanders, who needed to replace Ricky Stromberg, their guard/center, who went to IR. So this now, Adam, is the third offensive lineman that the Eagles have lost from their practice squad. Tyree Phillips went to the Giants earlier. He was with the Giants last year. And then Brett Toth, one of those two. Toth was signed by the Carolina Panthers. So clearly, Adam, the people around the league see what the Eagles do on the offensive line, and they think to themselves, maybe we want some of that, and then the Stoutland University coaching.
That's got to be part of it. I mean, the Panthers signed Toth off the Eagles practice squad. What we were told is that they saw him as a backup left tackle and right tackle. They didn't see him really as a guard or anything else. They
certainly not a center, right? Like he was doing in training camp.
Right. That's what I mean. That's why I brought up. They didn't see him like that. They saw him strictly as a swing tackle, and they were hoping to develop him as that. So yeah. In fact, here's the crazy thing. The only lineman they have now left on their practice squad is LaRaven Clark, who we know can play left or right. And I know he's played guard in his career. He's really not a guard. Talking to someone who was, I guess he might have played guard. They said they tried it. He's better off at tackle. So Washington signed Good-Jones, and Toth was signed by the Panthers, and the Giants brought back Tyree Phillips. So boy, that's a guy, man. It's too bad they couldn't keep him, because he's got ability to play in this league. He was drafted by the Ravens, so yeah, they have a spot open now. They've got 15 players in the practice squad.
Yeah, well, knowing the Eagles as we do, you can rest assured, come April when it's draft time, and then March when it's free agency time, there'll be some offensive linemen on their list, as they always stockpile and address themselves with good depth at that position. You're right. The only practice squad offensive lineman they have right now is LaRaven Clark. So that is also interesting to know.
Right. Yeah.
All right, we'll get into the injuries in a second. First, I want to pause to hear from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right. Injuries. It's not a great situation. Obviously, the biggest one, Dallas Goedert. He's got the fractured right forearm. Now, if you talk to a lot of people who have dealt with fractured arms, Adam, 4 is on the very, very generous, quick healer side, is what we've been told. I mean, that, even Clay Harbor said on our pregame show, and he broke his wrist, although not playing football, trying to impress a woman on The Bachelorette. But he said that 4 would be if you just everything goes right and you heal really well.
Yeah. So what we'd heard, it's 4 to 6 weeks. Definitely will be back for the end of the season. Remember now, that's weeks, but on IR, if they do put him on that, you have to miss games, not weeks. Weeks have nothing to do with it. It's about games. So they wouldn't put him on now anyway, because it wouldn't count towards missing games. So they'll evaluate it. They went through this last year. We know Goddard's had a lot of injury issues over his career, but it's not something that this staff hasn't dealt with before. They dealt with it last year when he got hurt against, was it Washington and Philly, right? When he got hurt,
it was Washington, right? Year. Because then they went to the bye. They came out and won. They had a very close win against Indianapolis in their first game without him, and then the next 3 games. They lit up the. It's like, I hate to say it, it's like they didn't even miss him because they lit up the scoreboard, right? Yeah.
And we'll get more into this when we go over our final word from the Cowboys game. But this is interesting, and you pointed this out on a pregame show. I'm glad you did that, because I went back and looked. So Calcaterra did work Friday, so he's pretty close to getting on the protocol. Last Friday, he wasn't clear to play, but that means he's close.
Mm-hmm.
So. And Sirianni talked about him on Monday. So you would think, barring a setback, that he should be able to be available for that Chiefs game. The next time they play is until November 20th. It's that Monday night game. And we know Stoll's the number 2. So those guys are the 2. They've got the kid on the practice squad, the undirected free agent who was with the Jets. Who's
EJ
Jenkins.
EJ Jenkins.
Yeah. So, but again, he hasn't really played. So he also was hurt with them. He's actually wave injured, but it would be those 2, obviously, and we'll see what they do about a third and whether they sign. It would make sense for them to sign Tyree Jackson back from the Giants practice squad, because he obviously knows the offense. There's your third, but they'll evaluate that. They're not playing this week. Of course, Watkins is eligible to practice and return after the bye. We'll see where he's at. Jurgens is obviously pretty close. He worked quite a bit last week. Still in IR, could return. Now, Jurgens and Watkins are on injured reserve, so they'd have to clear room. That's just, you and I talked about a couple weeks ago. Who would they cut? That's the question.
May not have to worry about that if there's an IR move coming with both Dallas Goedert, and we have to find out, as you'll probably about to get to, what's up with Nakobe Dean's foot.
Yeah, in fact. Was Sirianni not asked about him on Monday?
He was not. I was a little surprised.
Yeah. So okay, well, we'll update that for you, as we did when he got hurt the last time. We'll let you know exactly, because as we reported back then, it was a sprained foot, and you had heard 4 weeks. That was right on exactly when he came back after 4 weeks. So we'll find out. We don't know if it's the same right foot. We were told it was the right foot the last time. So.
Mm-hmm.
And you heard the guys, for people who want to know about Dean's tape, Cosell and Avant, particularly Greg, talked about him as you teed him up on it on our pregame show. Is great information. That actually Zach Cunningham has outplayed him. It's a tape shows. And so he only goes by tape. He doesn't go by anything else, Greg. So that's what the tape told him, as he always says. Bradley Roby was asked on X, the former Twitter, if he'd be back after the bye, and he said, yes, sir. So we'll take him at his word, but he's got to get cleared medically to take contact. So you would assume he'll practice whenever they practice next week. And then he just has to get clear for contact. Then Justin Evans is yet another player who's eligible to come back after the bye. So we'll see. With that knee injury, we don't know what it is. You would think it would be some sort of sprained knee because they put him on IR.
Right.
So they have some decisions to make. So again, it was kind of last year we told you folks, no matter what you're hearing, they're not cutting Trey Sermon. They want to get a look at him. They did. Fast forward to 8 months, then they wound up cutting him. Also got hurt, but he's now with the Colts. So you have to ask yourself, and Albert, my bad, I should have mentioned that. You've got, if Calcaterra is healthy, then if he gets cleared, then they don't have to do anything at tight end. That's.
I was going to mention that. I thought Alberto might be a good opportunity, especially with the bye week. You get an extra week of acclimation, although I know these guys get sent home, but probably a good time to start seeing if Alberto can fit this offense.
Right now, but again, right. And then before we move on to sort of the tape and everything else we've heard, you got to start thinking about this, about what they'll do. This is what the GM and his staff and the coaches will have to think about. If Evans and Watkins return after the bye, 1 or 2 weeks after the bye or the week after the bye, someone's going to have to go. And Penny had his cameo, his ridiculous spin the wheel cameo. Okay. Hey, Rashad, you're in for 2 plays. You're going to start the second half, and then you're out.
Right.
Who knows? I don't know. This one's a little bit hard to figure out who they cut.
So, it looks like one, right? I'm pretty sure. Well, I shouldn't be sure of anything, but I'd be surprised if Dallas Goedert didn't go on IR. No reason not to. If he's at least going to miss four games, right?
4 weeks, right? At least 4 weeks, right? Because the games will start counting. They'll be after the bye, right? Yeah, sure. That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, if Nakobe Dean again has to go on IR, then you probably can welcome back Justin Evans and Bradley Roby without. Or no, Roby's not on IR. Justin Evans and Cam Jurgens, right? Without
Jurgens, yeah.
Wait. Oh, you're right. They have 3 guys: Watkins, Jurgens, and Evans, who are all on IR. Those guys. Yeah, so they would probably still have to make an additional move if both Nakobe Dean and Dallas Goedert go on IR. If it's just Goddard, then they're going to have to make 2 corresponding moves, and that'll be pretty interesting to see where they go with that. Patrick
Johnson's the only special teams player. I know, well, it would take guts. I'm sure they won't do it because they owe money, but Derek Barnett was a surprise healthy and active.
Mm-hmm.
I just say that because with the money he's being paid, they typically just have the guy active and let him play a handful, not a lot.
Right.
So, but you like to have the depth during the playoffs. You never know with injuries. So obviously it's highly unlikely they would cut him. But at this point, they're going to have to figure this out. I mean, it's just something that we have to talk about. It's sort of a good problem to have because you're going to get some guys who contribute. Justin Evans certainly can contribute.
Yeah. I think a name that jumps off to me because he's not playing and he's only playing a little bit of special teams. And again, if you're getting both Bradley Roby and Justin Evans back, then I don't know how many D-backs you're going to keep. You already have Ringo. You already have Ricks. It might be Josiah Scott. Thanks for the help for a couple of weeks, but we're a little,
I'd agree
here. So
I agree.
That might be a guy you keep your eye on.
I agree because he's only playing nickel on special teams. Job Walt. Really, when you look at it, Job is an outside corner. They like him. He's not going anywhere. Ricks is not going anywhere. He's trying to play nickel. It's not really what he's comfortable with.
Right.
I know. Look, you can't blame Desai on this one. What he's doing, he's got a place. He doesn't have anywhere else to go.
Right.
What are they going to do? Put Nick Moore was a safety in college back there.
Yeah, I think the Eagles have given you the answer here because they haven't played Scott on defense in the last 2 weeks. They've only played him at special teams. After making him the starting nickel 3 weeks ago, they basically said, nope, we're going to go back to Sidney Brown and Eli Ricks. So that tells you how they feel.
Right. Decisions and playing time they're giving the answers. That's Mario Goodrich played some nickel earlier this season. Now he's back in the practice squad. Kendall Vilder, they're not willing to move him up yet.
Right.
You know what? We'll talk to Chuck about him. I think he had Chuck at Kendall Vilder. Oh, this is perfect.
Yeah, that'll be a good one
on Friday. So it's interesting. Now I don't think they would do it because he's a core special teamer. There's Christian Ellis, but he's not. Remember at one point we're like, wow, he might be starting an inside linebacker. Oops, not so much.
No, it's amazing how much things change in 3 to 6 weeks. All right, we'll talk a little bit about the Dallas game and get some all 20 new notes and personnel source notes and everything. First, want to tell you, if you found $100 bill on the ground, would you walk past it, Adam? If you found $100 bill on the ground?
Would I walk past it?
Yeah,
No.
would you just leave it there? No, because you're a sane person like I am, right? So why would anyone be passing up on cashing winners every weekend? My bookie has the biggest online selection of odds and contests to fill all your sports betting needs anytime, anywhere. So you can turn that sports knowledge into cash in your wallet. Bet on the NFL. You could have bet on the MLB playoffs maybe next year. Phillies back in, you bet on them there if you can, or you play for a share of big cash prizes in the weekly blackjack tournaments. All right. If you've been waiting for the right time to get in on the action, that time is now. Make your winning move today. Sign up at MyBookie. Use our promo code, TheBirds, all one word, and claim your deposit match redeemable up to $1,000. That's a great deposit match right there. Up to $1,000 using the promo code, TheBirds, one word, to claim your bonus. Experience the thrill of sports betting right from the comfort of your own home. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. All right, why don't we start with the Eagles offense, Adam, and I would say it was a fairly efficient game for the Eagles offense. I think most people would say you'd like to see the foot on the throat, right, in the fourth quarter there, where instead of having to give the ball back. But I also understand that when you get the ball, when you force a turnover on downs on 4th and 1, and you are literally at your own half-yard line, it's pretty hard to do anything there. I mean, they pushed it, they try to run, they try to quick pass. That's a good Dallas defense. So that I don't want to say that possession doesn't count, but it certainly didn't. It helped to not give up the touchdown. It did not help to start at your own half-yard.
Well, and remember, we need to mention this. Goddard was out. That killed them. I mean, that was. Look, they scored 28 points with Goddard missing a lot of that game. Mm-hmm. But they could have used him not only to block for the run game, where he's terrific, just in the pass game, and that's going to be interesting. And we'll talk more about this if we go on our self scout on Friday. I really look forward to getting into that. But one thing I wanted to ask you, see if you could figure this out. Mm-hmm. What do the 2017, 22 teams and 23 teams have in common of the Eagles?
The 2017 Eagles that won the Super Bowl, last year's Eagles, and this year's Eagles. What are they all
identical? Yeah, I'm going to give you a hint. It's identical. Exactly the same.
Jason Kelce was the starting center. Lane Johnson was is it something like
non-player standpoint?
Okay, like something statistical.
Yep, non-player standpoint.
Time of possession.
Exact 8-1 record after 9 games.
Oh, that's a great one. Yes.
And they had a bye in week 10 in 2017.
Really? I forgot about that. That's pretty interesting.
As Flip told us recently, that Denver game that was going into the bye was week 9. It was November 5th, 17. That's when he said they put the target on Keep Talib because he's piping off a little bit.
Yes.
Well, it's what the tape showed. He didn't run that well, and they were going to go after him.
Right.
And that was the 51-point bonanza. But I just thought it was interesting. It is really incredible.
Right.
It's just he's 8-1. Wow. I didn't see this coming. Anyway, I digress. So getting back to the offense, the only look, the red zone is, as I said earlier, boy, the red zone offense has really come. I don't want to say it came out of nowhere. It's just improved. It had to. We knew it was going to improve. Last 3 games, it's been terrific. Their efficiency's up. Their running game efficiency, as Flip said, this is from a coaching standpoint. John said that a 4-yard run is an efficient run. Explosive run is 5 yards or more. They're not getting a lot of explosives comparatively to the Tampa Bay game where they were great. You might remember that. Yes, the Minnesota game, but Brian Flores invited them to run. The Tampa Bay game was Vita Vea played in that game. Mm-hmm. They're just not getting as many, and their target numbers were down in this game to the running back for whatever reason. I don't know why. That's what happened.
I would probably allude that to the more of the man defense that the Dallas Cowboys played. Usually when you see a defense play a lot of 2 deep like the Eagles and drop guys into zones, that's when the running backs kind of leak out and they're open. And Jalen Hurts has done a really good job, obviously, when presented, of doing that, of especially I think this month leading up to the Dallas game, where he's finding DeAndre Swift against those zones, or he's going underneath to Goddard. After the first 3 weeks, while we were saying, where's Goddard, or why aren't you throwing to your running backs? I think weeks 4 through 7, he's done a lot better job. But yeah, Dallas didn't really give you. Remember what Greg said? He was right, and it really showed up on tape. Dallas linebackers, who I didn't know much about. Bell, what was it, Marquise Bell? Bell?
Yep.
And who's the other linebacker they have? He's pretty good. It's not obviously Van Der Esch is on injured reserve.
Damone Clark. Yeah,
Clark.
Yeah,
those guys are really, really fast. So when you saw situations where running backs were going in the flat, those guys were ready to be there. So I think that was a big part of it. And I think that's there were 2 runs by DeAndre Swift, Adam, where there was nowhere to run, and he just did that little wiggle. Again, the stuff that you just don't see Gainwell be able to do, where DeAndre Swift made something out of nothing. And they were two pretty critical times. But I will give credit for, the first touchdown. Gainwell did a really nice job.
That was
obviously. So here's my biggest observation with the running game.
Mm-hmm.
And I made this mention with Jalen Hurts not running. I felt like the Eagles had to be a little bit spicier in their offensive run game, meaning you can't just line up and run inside zone like you were doing against Minnesota and everybody early in the year and just blowing people off the ball, especially against this defense, right? This game, a lot of tackle trapping, a lot of guards pulling. They definitely have more guys moving around, more moving parts, and even some motion. I'm curious when stats come out to see how much more motion the Eagles used in this game than others, because they did use some of it. We always talk about they don't use motion a whole lot, but they did use some motion in this game in an attempt to try to get some lanes, getting linemen on the move. But Dallas's defense is really good, and it was tough. Every yard they got was tough sledding.
A couple of things here. Both of Swift's catches were explosive.
Yes.
Of 10 yards and 21 yards. So you like that. Actually 20 and 20. His high was 20. The other one was 11. So that's really good. I love the Goddard play. The 12-yarder is great. In fact, they were 3 for 3 in the red zone, which is important. They got that done. They're over the red zone issue. So that's behind them now, clearly. Mm-hmm. I'm so interested to see what they do coming out of the bye. What the best staffs are the ones that understand that you're never as good as you think you are, and you have to continue to reinvent yourself. And with Brian Johnson and Kevin Patullo and Sirianni, I'm interested to see what kind of new wrinkle. Not new. You're not going to change your scheme at all, but things like I was saying earlier, you bring stuff that you ran in training camp, because the thing that we've not seen from Swift is the passes downfield, the vertical throws.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was unreal, practice after practice, catching the ball downfield, and no one could cover him. That's the other thing. And you mentioned how he's not taking negative runs. He falls forward. He's just great at that.
Yeah.
And don't let the 2.4 yards per carry fool you. Remember, what's included in that are short yardage runs. That's why the numbers are going to drop.
Right.
We sometimes lose focus on that. But by the way, the one thing we did, Hurts's runs were up. Now he didn't look right. The touchdown run was obviously the tush push, but we said this to start the season. The only thing with Hurts this year is he didn't look explosive. We all talked about it. Remember the New England game? He didn't look explosive. Mm-hmm. Now you have the left knee injury, and it's good that now you have the bye now. We'll get it more rested. I'm also interested to see if they think he's looking better. What kind of wrinkles could they add to the run game with him? Because, man, Flip talked about it on this our Patreon this week. Yes, they ran RPOs and they had some success, but they're not having anywhere near as success with the RPOs as they had last year.
No, but it did. The one area where it came and helped them, which folds into our conversation, is the red zone. Because in the fourth quarter, the ball Goddard got hurt on was a classic 2022 style RPO, Adam. You remember where
awesome, yep,
where Goddard runs across the scrimmage, and there were times where Jalen would not throw it to him and use him as the blocker. So you'd see Goddard like kind of look to catch the ball, but then, all right, you're gonna run it. I'm gonna turn around now and be your lead blocker. And there were times where he would throw it. So he threw it this time because Goddard was crossing. Again, it's a lot to do with Dallas playing man defense. Goddard crosses and the linebacker is trailing, but he can't get there in time. So Jalen throws such a great on-time lead pass that Goddard gets it while his momentum is carrying him, up the field toward the sideline. So he gets a big gain on that. And then here's where I thought Brian Johnson was like in his bag, right? I mean, this was good stuff. So Goddard gets hurt and he comes out. All right. 2 plays later is when they're at the 4 or 5 yard line. They ran the exact same RPO, the exact same formation that Goddard had caught the ball on, except they put AJ Brown as almost like an offset tight end. They basically just put AJ Brown where Dallas Goedert is in that RPO and threw him the same pattern. That's pretty cool.
It is
I
cool.
thought that was really interesting.
And that's what I was talking about. The hope here is that going forward, okay, they had some success in this game, but the RPO number success is the way down. By the way, it's around the league.
Yep.
It's down. Now there are different. We'll talk to Chuck Pagano. I want to ask him what he thinks, because I know he worked for the 33rd team, and I know he has thoughts. He's really plugged into league trends and everything. There's this one thing, okay, off RPO, if you're trying to throw deep, forget it. Zone defenses, split safeties are not going to let you throw deep. They want you to throw in front of them. Okay, fine. But the Eagles are too smart, and their coaches are so good. And you just mentioned some of the stuff they just did in this game. So I'm interested to see what kind of things they do coming out of the bye.
Yeah, same here. Now, I got to, let's talk about the offensive line for a second. I mentioned all the moving that they were doing. I have no idea. I really can't get behind the science of why they started Tyler Steen, knowing that they were about to go into a bye week, and then right after the bye, you're probably going to have Cam Jurgens back, unless Cam Jurgens is hurt way more. But I don't think that's the case. He should be ready.
Well,
to go.
I would say this: you had the nugget on our show, that on our pregame show, that you'd heard that Opeta did not play well.
Correct, I heard, but I guess I'm also I was not expecting that Tyler Steen was going to go against this great Dallas Cowboys defensive front and defense and be that much better. And not only that, at least Opeta has experience. I mean, on the first drive, Adam, Tyler Steen tripped over Jason Kelsey's ankles while pulling not once but twice, and that blows up a run when you're the pulling guard. Right. And the running back's supposed to follow you, but you're on the ground. Then you got like 300-pound, you're DeAndre Swift, you got a 300-pound guy or a Micah Parsons coming right at you. So that to me is just inexperience and timing and coordination, because you're not out there with the first team unit.
And it's a new position. I mean, look, he's never played guard in his life until he was drafted. I mean, this is, we had noted before training camp started that he was well behind Jurgens in technique. Well, you would expect that. Yeah, I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, rookie camp doesn't really count much because the veterans aren't in there, and you have and OTAs are so light. You can't hit, or you can't grab. You can't really do much. Training camp, he was so far behind. You and I were there. We saw it. It looked like it was a fait accompli. He wasn't going to play much.
Right.
We saw him inactive for the first, I think, 5 games.
Yep.
But good for him and good for Stout to get him going. And I'm interested to see. And then are they cross training him to be a backup tackle too? Who knows? We'll see. Because like you said, once Jurgens plays, and Flip told us, John said, when he said, what did he say? 51. He goes, I got to talk about 51. I said, who are you talking? Jurgens? He goes, yeah, 50. That kid. He said his tape was really good.
Yeah. So. And I think, again, having that year of experience and playing, at very least, I don't expect Cam Jurgens to trip over Kelsey. Now, on the first one, this is like comical when you're watching it all 22. Tyler Steen and Lane Johnson both tripped over Kelsey. So I'm like, okay, maybe they're all messed up on that. That's a commit. Sure. Then 2 plays later, Tyler Steen does it again. And then I counted 2 more times in the second half, just in general, not necessarily on a pull, where Steen had trouble staying on his feet. As an offensive lineman, the number one thing you got to do is stay on your feet. And you see it a lot with young linemen. They lose their balance. They get, somebody gives them a swim move or a club move. You got to be able to anchor your feet and fight back and punch back. But he was on the ground too much.
All right. I'm going to give you a real world review of that. What you just said about God being on his butt. You might remember we talked about this, folks, a couple of years ago when Andre Dillard would go against Josh Sweat.
Oh my God.
And Sweaty would at the training camp. The word we had heard, Dillard was on his back too much.
Yep. So
on the ground, you can't. That just as you said it made me think of that, because I remember hearing this. I'm like, geez. And Dillard, by the way, got benched by the Titans.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it's not good. So, but getting back to this, so also tight end. So they're playing without Goddard, and they had to they went with more 11 personnel, which you would expect because Calcaterra didn't play. Here's the question going forward here, and we'll talk more about this in Self Scout. But my early thinking would be, because look, Julio Jones could play 25 snaps. He's in good enough shape. Zacchaeus is there. So they've got 4 guys they can use. They don't use Covey on offense. It's just going to be a punt return. But they can do this. Now if Calcaterra's back after the bye, they can go back to last year, and also they could do some of the stuff that they did. But they didn't have Julio Jones last year. This is the thing.
Right.
They've got this ability to go more 11. And Look, Julio Jones is healthy. He had the red zone touchdown. I'm interested to see what does he have left. If you got to play him a little bit more, can he give you more?
Yeah, I mean, are you sort of building a case to play more, say, 4 wide than 11? Because
But not 10, but I would go 11, more 11.
more 11 because you don't have Goddard.
Because
So
Goddard's a stud. I mean, he's just a stud. I mean,
yeah, no.
yeah,
In fact,
play the same way.
Jason Avant felt that if anything, you may see a return of a little bit more of a prominent run game because now you don't have a third person in the passing game to feed and worry about, because DeFilippo, we asked him about that and he said that's a real thing. When you have playmakers, you got to get them the ball. Like that's the coaches know that.
Devontae gets the ball more. Sure, but for fantasy, he's a guy I'd trade for.
Yeah.
His trade deadlines in fantasy are coming up within the next week or so.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so he'll get that. In fact, we'll have those numbers for you of what Devontae did after Goddard got hurt last year.
Yeah.
And then so the offensive line, depending on who you speak with, was good, not great. But I don't know. We knew coming in that Dallas had a very low. They're very deep on their defensive line. It's better than last year's, and obviously Parsons. They still do a great job against Parsons. We know what happened last year against Parsons, particularly here where they went away from him when Cooper Rush was quarterback on the offensive side, and they made sure when they had the ball, they had a plan for Micah Parsons. I thought that was great. Right. So I thought from everything I've heard so far early on here, it's been good. But what do you think?
So I went into this thinking I don't like to necessarily dictate what I'm thinking, but these are 2 really good defensive fronts. Okay, very good. So what I expected was to see, just based after watching the game like in live, like we did, that there were going to be snaps where the Eagles offensive line struggled at times, and there were going to be snaps where they did a good job at times. And that's, I think, a fair expectation. And that's what I saw. I saw Mailata really get pushed around by Micah Parsons enough, like 5 or 6 times that made a difference. 5 or 6 times in a game that's one possession can matter. Yeah. I thought he really struggled in that department on those snaps, right? But then there were some really good snaps too. The one thing that really jumps out to me, it's sort of like a cheat code. The touchdown that Jalen Hurts threw to Devontae Smith coming out of the second half, third quarter. That was such a beautifully thrown ball.
Oh, what a throw.
It was a great recognition by Jalen Hurts. What I believe it was a 1-by-3 formation with Devontae Smith as the 1 to the left side and then 3 to the right. So and it was against a cover 1 look. So 1 safety deep. So that safety obviously has to play to the side of 3 receivers, the passing strength side, right? So right away, Jalen knows that he'll very likely have a 1-on-1 down the left sideline with Devontae Smith. I think it was on Deron Bland, if I'm not mistaken. And they had just run the ball. Remember, this is coming right out of halftime. They had just run the ball with Penny twice, and then they got a swift run in. So they were in the same formation to run the ball, right, when they threw that pass. So I think Brian Johnson was doing a few things here, setting them up, making Dallas not play too high, play 1 high, try to stop the run. And that's when he popped a really nice, deep ball to Devontae Smith. But Adam, the one thing as I watched it, I'm like, wow, you see the semicircular arc of protection there. That's what we always talk about with the offensive line. But when I watched it on the closer view, I noticed one thing that jumped out at me. Dallas had their backup defensive ends in, right? They didn't have DeMarcus Lawrence and they didn't have Micah Parsons.
That was an alert. Yeah.
I wonder though, if Brian Johnson I wonder if he noticed the substitution there, saw this is a really good opportunity to take a deep shot. They're in a cover 1. We're running the ball. They might think we're going to run, and they don't have Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence on the field.
They play. It's funny. Today's NFL, if you play over like 28% man, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And the Eagles are around 20 to 29, and Dallas is almost at 40%. They play a ton of cover 1. As Cosell talked about on the pregame, he mentioned that. And there's certain alerts that you have by personnel or by coverage, and they got it both, and they got after it. And
yeah,
I'm just interested to see before we get to the defense, finish the show out. I'm just interested to see what they're going to do after the bye here without Goddard, because it just changed a lot. He does everything so well. As we said earlier, it's not like they haven't had to deal with this before.
Right.
And one of the things that Nick Sirianni does an incredible job of is just when someone goes down, They figure it out and they get the job done. And that's what coaching is all about. Always have to have a plan. And so far in his 3 years here, he's always had a plan.
Yes, he has. The last thing I'll say is that I felt that Jalen Hurts was the better decision maker than Dak Prescott in the game. And I think that made a big, big difference. I'm going to go to a 3rd and 15 earlier in the game. I think the Eagles scored their either the first or second touchdown. Yeah, the first touchdown. They were facing 3rd and 15, and they were facing another cover 1, and they were in a 3-by-2. The Eagles were, and Gilmore was playing at least 15 yards off, 10 to 15 yards off AJ Brown. So that's basically inviting Jalen Hurts to throw him a slant, right? I mean, when you're that far off, we hear Eagles fans complain about this from Eagles cornerbacks all the time, right? So I don't know. When you're Dallas, you got to think, if I give up 12 yards on 3rd and 15 and it's 4th and 3, the Eagles are going to go for it. And if I give up any more than that, then they're going to get it, right? So they took advantage. Hurts saw it immediately, threw a sort of a deep slant to AJ Brown. He got like 13 yards on it. And instead of Dallas being happy that they forced an underneath route, it set up 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 for the Eagles that they easily got on the tush push. And there were like 2 other times where I thought that Jalen recognized the soft coverage immediately in a big high leverage spot, threw the ball and got the yards. And there were a couple of times on the other end where I didn't think Dak Prescott, where he had the same opportunities, did that. So
he played well, but
he did play well. He did play well, but he left some points on the board. He left some throws on the board.
Oh God, I don't want to give it away, but we asked John, what were your thoughts on the last play, and we're not going to give it away. Flip. He was so fired up when he texted me on Tuesday. He's like, he gave me like 10 things he wants. Usually doesn't do that. Things that he wants to talk about. We just, we take our questions from our members on Patreon, and he goes, dude, we got to talk. He gave me like a laundry list. I'm like, all right, dude, we'll do it. Whatever you want.
Let's go for it.
Right. Yeah. But the bottom line is they got the game won, and without Goddard, it was certainly going to be more of a challenge. And they held out, and Hurts was so efficient and accurate. And they also didn't turn the ball over. I know, with the stupid play when AJ Brown ran into when Steen recovered the fumble. That, like as Sirianni said, that can't happen. It did, but it can happen, and I'm sure it'll be correct.
Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, and then there was a 3rd and 8 where Hurts hit AJ Brown on the left side because Deron Bland was playing 10 yards off. Like, you can't play 10 yards off AJ Brown on 3rd and 8, give up a 7-yard catch or a 6-yard catch and think the Eagles are going to punt. I didn't really understand the thought process there by the Dallas defensive backs, but again, the Eagles, we hear people complain about that with the Eagles defensive backs too.
Yep.
It's tough. I mean, I know if you play too close on AJ Brown, he could double move you to death, but I don't know. I'd rather give up the lower percentage, make him make the contested catch or the unbelievable catch on me than just giving him,
I agree,
8 to 10 yard cushion.
You can't do it, because that's where AJ. Well, see, it's funny. AJ Brown will kill you. We'll move on to defense in like 20 seconds. But
yeah,
the one thing I wanted to say on defense on AJ Brown is because his whole. I mean, the Eagles have done a lot of this, just like Tennessee did with crossers. But they prevented. I'll say this about Dallas's defense: the only thing they really prevented, quite frankly, for the most part, was the deep plays. Yet Goddard got him on the play. He got hurt on a vertical, which is a great call and great execution. Smith did, but they just didn't get killed like all the other teams seem to be against AJ Brown. It's kind of interesting how that works out.
Definitely. All right, we'll get to the defensive element of the game first. We've been telling you about our friends at HelloFresh. I mean, they save us so much time and energy because they deliver farm fresh food with pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to our doorstep. There is no more wasting time at the grocery store because America's #1 meal kit helps make home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. We don't have to waste time researching recipes. We don't have to plan our meals. With HelloFresh, the shopping is already done, and the perfect amount of ingredients arrive with step-by-step recipe cards. You cannot get more efficient than that. Plus, HelloFresh saves you time and money. HelloFresh is 25% less expensive than takeout, so you get a home-cooked meal without digging deep into your wallet, and it's healthy. It's not that crud, fattening stuff that you're always ordering to your doorstep, all right? Don't forget about taste and selection. HelloFresh makes food for meat lovers, seafood lovers, vegetarians, and those who just love all types of varieties. You can get anything you want. My personal favorite has been the spicy Creole stew. I love it. Had it the other night. Whole family sat down. We had time to enjoy it because it was easy to make and cook. So go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use the promo code 50Eagles, 50 Eagles, one word, for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/50Eagles. Use the promo code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. Act now for America's #1 meal kit. All right, we'll talk about the Eagles defense. What do you think? What in general, defensive line? I kind of equated to the offensive line. You felt they were going to get some wins and there were going to be some dry spells.
Yeah, I mean, this is easy. I talked to someone in Pro Personnel that another team is ready to see the Eagles game. Here are my notes. Lots of pressure, ton of pressure. But when Dak moved, he got room to run, and there were so many voids in their secondary, which Von Cosell talked about on Sunday in our pregame. We got what we were expecting from Brian Schottenheimer and Mike McCarthy who put the Cowboys offense together.
Yes,
they knew coming in, Eagles don't have a nickel corner, and that's what we got. That's it. When they got pressure, they got a lot of pressure, but also when they didn't, Dak made several explosives. They gave too many explosives.
Yep.
The other part about the Eagles tackled pretty well in this game in terms of the run. Pollard had a couple nice runs. As we told you in the pre-game, they don't run but they've changed. What we had heard is they changed their offensive line scheme because they're running a lot of gap scheme. Now they're running a lot of zone. It's not working. They also made a mistake of not signing a veteran running back to back up Pollard to get with size. That was a bad mistake by Jerry Jones, who's the GM and the owner. But as you said, when they didn't get pressure, they got exposed. They better hope that Roby's good. That's all I can tell you, because if Roby is not, they got problems.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb obviously had 191 yards, and I gotta say, some of the routes that he caught passes on were not like really complex routes, not like great double moves. In fact, he slipped on one route, but so did Eli Ricks, and he still was able to catch the ball for about 20 yards because both of them slipped, but CeeDee Lamb was just able to get there. From a pressure standpoint, I thought edge pressure. I thought Reddick and Sweat were animals. They wore down a little bit as the game went on, but then picked it up again in the fourth. But I didn't see as much interior pressure from the trio of Cox, Jordan Davis, and Jalen Carter. A little bit, but not as what we usually see.
No, in fact, Davis, I don't know what his weight is. I want to ask. I'm going to check on Davis what the tape looks like. I'm very curious because you see his shirt hanging out. I don't know how well he's moving. We know Cosell said there are a couple of kids who was dominant and awesome. Greg is, I don't know if he's a fan of any player, but Greg doesn't hide it when he likes a player, and when a player's doing well, say it. When he's not, say it. But we're going to check with some people on him, on Davis, and then Jalen Carter. Look, he's dealing with a couple injuries lately. We knew without Hargrave it was not going to be great interior wise in terms of pure pass rush, pure numbers, pure pressure numbers, and it's not. And to a certain extent, it's not as consistent. But you see flashes with Carter. He's obviously having a very good rookie season. Let's not sugarcoat it. He's been really good.
Yeah.
But lately, not as good as you said. I'm when we'll do our self scout on Friday, but that's something that I'm looking forward to. Is what the game, what the side can do when he gets not only Roby back, but what are the new things he can do? Well, he's done a very nice job considering what he's had to work with on the back end. And as Von and Cosell said on Sunday, on our pregame, those guys are not running well on the back end, and that is not the defense coordinator's fault. You have who you have. Trade deadline is gone, and it's going to be hard. We're going to see. They got to try something else.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So real quick point on the linebackers. Obviously, Dean got hurt. Before that, Adam, he actually blitzed 4 times in his snaps. They're using him now the way they were, at least before he got hurt, as they did in Georgia. And you could see he was effective like that when he had to cover. You remember the defensive pass interference he had on Jake Ferguson. It set up the ball at the goal line. They scored a touchdown a play or two later. There were about 2 other plays in coverage where you can tell it's just not coming to him yet. He didn't do it at Georgia. It's not the most experienced at dropping into zones and covering these crossing patterns. So that's really, to me at this point, Adam, when he gets back and healthy, that's going to be another sort of offseason. The rest of this year, you'll see it. Then you got to really work on that in the offseason, just knowing your landmarks, knowing where to be, how to make plays on the ball if it's near you. That's just stuff that it's not coming second nature to him yet.
I agree.
All right, we'll finish this up with the back end. First, I want to remind everybody to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. Enhancing the fans' experience. Their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. Let's also hear a word from our great friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. Obviously, we don't have to sit here and spend 20 minutes on the secondary. Everybody saw
30 seconds.
Yeah, everybody saw it. Yeah, but Reed Blankenship played well. I do want to give him that. He
played better.
Did play well. He made tackles. You mentioned this. They tackled well. He was part of that. He obviously had the big stop at the goal line on Schoonmaker.
Awesome that was
he actually had
an awesome play.
He also had a pass breakup in one-on-one coverage on CeeDee Lamb earlier in the game, which because he was there and he had his hands up, so that was good too.
So here's the thing: overall, though, their coverages are not. It's not working. It's not just a slot corner.
Correct.
Bayard's learning on the run. He's playing every snap, and he's just learning the defense here. So he's got a bye week now, but it's not his fault. People want to say, "Oh, maybe he's cooked." That's nothing to do with it. It's just he's learning a new defense. It's like C.J. Gardner-Johnson did. He had to come in before the season started last year, literally right before it, and now I know he's a different player. I'm just giving an example,
right,
of having to do it. Now this is week 7, 8, 9, and 10. He's having to learn it. It's really difficult.
It is.
So he'll get the bye to learn it, and they have who they have. They have decent depth at corner, but the issues are. Here's another thing that we don't really talk about this much. They rarely give Slay and Bradbury time place off during the game. Is that something they need to start doing? That's something.
Wow, I hadn't thought about that. You don't normally those are two high paid guys, and you don't normally see corners come out. But first of all, I think Slay played a pretty decent game from what I saw. I thought he was better. Bradbury, thankfully for him, he made that stop on Jalen Turbo on a 4th down because that was huge because there were about 5 or 6 other reps that he just. Back.
Listen to Q&A, folks. So if you don't believe me on Bradbury or Geoff, listen to Q&A.
Yeah. Well, I think people are starting to see it now. It's just
it's and Greg and Jason talked about it on our pregame show, man. This is what Joe Banner told us in the spring. He goes, he the one issue he had is going with such an older secondary because you never know when they're going to start losing it.
Mm-hmm.
And you got 4 of their 5 starters now when Broby comes back are 30 years or older. That's. I get their veterans; they're very talented, but you always worry about that. But that's we'll talk more about that on Friday show. But that's something we're going to keep an eye on.
Of course. All right, we'll still have a great amount of coverage. We'll still have ITB out on Friday and next Monday, and we'll have some interesting topics as we head into the bye week and come out of the bye week. Look forward to doing that. That'll be it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.